Throughout this month, we're going to be bringing you as much information as we can when it comes to getting started in Formula 1, because at the end of the day, everybody has a first race in Formula 1, and the 2025 season is coming up. So before we look ahead to the future, let's have a look at to the past. Let's have a look all the way back to the origins of Formula 1. How did F1 get started? Well, I'm going to walk you through that in today's explainer video on the history of Formula 1, how F1 got started. Formula 1 originated with the European Championship of Grand Prix races. This took place from the early 1900s when the Grand Prix was first invented in France, all the way until the Second World War. It was basically Formula 1 before F1 was a thing. Some stars that you may know from their F1 days, such as Nino Farina, also were greats during this era, and this was also the era of fantastic drivers such as Tazio Nuvolari, who the great Murray Walker said was the greatest Grand Prix driver ever, but he of course never competed in Formula 1. Though several Grand Prix organisations agreed to the formula or a set of rules before the Second World War, races were suspended during the war, and this is where the name for F1 comes from. Formula 1 is basically referring to the rules which govern how the cars can be built. To enter a Formula 1 car, it has to adhere to the Formula 1 rules, and that is something that is still the case to this day thanks to the technical regulations. Formula 1, which was a new set of rules, were agreed upon by the organisations of racing in 1946, just after the Second World War. The first non-championship race was the Turin Grand Prix, held the same year in Italy. The following year, the World Drivers' Championship was formalised. Achille Varzi, an Italian driver, won the race in an Alfa Romeo. The first World Championship race of Formula 1, though, was held in 1950 at Silverstone in the UK, the British Grand Prix. Giuseppe Nino Farina, an Italian driver in his Alfa Romeo, was the first driver to win the World Drivers' Championship that year. Juan Manuel Fangio, an Argentine driver and Farina's teammate, narrowly missed out on the championship title in 1950, but Fangio came back strongly to win in 1951, and he also won in 54, 55, 56 and 57, becoming a 5-time Formula 1 champion. That was something that stood the test of time all the way until Michael Schumacher's 5th World Championship, well, technically his 6th World Championship, would have broken it in 2003. The Constructors' Championship wasn't introduced straight away, though. This was not a part of the Formula 1 Championship until 1958. Back then it was called the International Cup for F1 manufacturers, and the first winner of the cup was Vanwall, a team that is very much confined to the history pages these days. According to the FIA, the Constructors' Championship is the constructor of an engine or chassis, is the person, including any corporate or an unincorporated body, which owns the intellectual rights such as engines or chassis. And that's the reason why teams have had names such as McLaren Renault in the past and currently have McLaren Mercedes. And it means that while the chassis of the F1 car was built by McLaren, the engine is currently supplied by Mercedes. So even though Mercedes works car, the Mercedes AMG car, missed out on the Constructors title in 24, the engine manufacturer, the company Mercedes, technically won one in the form of engine suppliers to McLaren. And that basically means that both parties work together and both parties succeed as well as constructors. Over the years, there have been only 5 countries that have shared the Constructors' Championship between them. These countries are the UK, which leads with 33 championships, Italy with 16, Germany with 8, Austria with 4, and France with 3. Ferrari of Italy with 16 championships is the top constructors to date, but they haven't won since 2008. Formula 1 went through many changes in its rules during the last 7.5 decades, and most of the changes were aimed at minimising the risk to the cars and the drivers and increasing the spectator appeal of the sport. There were changes in engine size, car widths, lengths, fuel tank sizes, and the types of tyres allowed. So yeah, that's kind of a rundown of Formula 1 and how it got started, really. And something I'd like to add to that is the fact that really Formula 1 was so popular in its early days, mainly because a lot of these drivers were fighter pilots. They were people that fought in the Second World War, and they were looking for something to, in their pastimes effectively, to actually do, and something exciting. And obviously they couldn't go out and fighting wars all the time because, you know, there wasn't always a war, and it was also very dangerous to do so. So going motor racing was kind of a halfway house of that. It's how the fighter pilots of the Second World War spent their you know, civilian days, if you will. I'm sure there's been a lot of drivers that have been in the RAF and other air forces like that have competed in Grand Prix racing. So that's kind of how it got started, and from there, the danger, the spectacle, the speed of it all, it just made it very, very popular, and something that is still extremely popular to this day, being of course the most popular motorsport in the world, and most popular motorsport in most countries in the world as well. So yeah, that's kind of a rundown of that, guys. There's a full beginner's guide article on the F1Chronicle.com if you do want to go and check that out. It goes into a lot of other subjects really when it comes to this. I'll be doing a load of videos really going over these and making them into a big supercut for you guys so that you can go and watch them at a later date. But we're getting through it. We're getting through it slowly. We're eking our way through that article. But yeah, for much more F1 explainer videos and everything in between, do keep it tuned here to the F1Chronicle.com. Like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the bell as well. And we'll see you very soon, guys. Have a good one.